That isolated island of cover free of humans and other deer. An area that offers the best land features within a buck's range. Dense cover, isolation, escape, access in several directions. Cover leading to food and doe groups. Bedding within this patch that maximizes the sense of smell, sight, and sound. Land features such as water that allow the safety of no predators approaching from that direction. Ridges or slopes that offer visibility over a long distance. Heavy edge cover that allows hearing detection by any approaching danger and allows the buck to not be visible for any distance. Bedding that offers dry bedding and overhead cover. These areas are usually located in hard to get areas that are doe free. The does are bedding and other easy access cover. I know these areas vary in size, but I've learned that 1/2 to 1 acre sizes are common. The larger they get, the more they allow access to doe groups, which is exactly what mature bucks do not want. I have been fortunate enough to have successfully created one of these islands on my land. The wheel hub I created is hard for deer to access. It's about 1 acre in size. It offers all of the qualities I listed above except the ridge. My land is very flat. Mature bucks will seek out these areas within their home range. If you're fortunate enough to have this on your place, you're way ahead of the game. With a lot of planning and prep work, I was able to access my stand and be 30 to 40 yards from that particular buck in the center there. The stars were lined up last fall when I took a great buck on my first outing. Some may ask, why is your stand so close? Having watched 2 mature bucks use this spot over the last few years opened my eyes. The bucks will get out of their bed, walk around inside this small area, rubbing trees and working limbs, never traveling over 50 yards from the bed before dark. Heavy edge screens, dense cover, access trails, and using the wind lets me pull it off. So with that in mind, when you get to this place, you'll see what we're talking about. But thank you once again for all your guys' support. Thank you.
Come on down and pack in. We kind of want to fan out, make a semicircle here, and that's what we're going to do as we go from one station to another. This is a small property. We're going to be in crowded areas, and when we make a stop along the way, we want everybody to get cozy, get right in and rub shoulders, because we're going to have to pack in if we want people to hear. We're going to have stations along the way. This is the first station. I'll be presenting some concepts at this station. Most of the tour is going to be done by Terry Bishop and his brother Greg. We're going to stop along the way. We're going to hear about ponds and warm season grasses from Dan Timmons. And we're also going to meet up with Ed Spinazzola back on some destination food plots at the back. And he'll talk to you about how to set up your gun setups for the food plots and how he arranges that. And he's got a new CD on that subject as well that you can buy. It's for sale up here, as White Cat has them. And he's donating $5 from each sale to the Bishop family. So please dig deep in your pockets and you'll learn a lot from that. Are we pretty much gathered in? We got everybody? What I'm going to ask you to do today is, as we start moving, move along briskly. I know that everybody here is talking all the time and they can't talk and walk at the same time, but I'm going to ask you to do that because we got a whole bunch of people that we need to move through this thing. As we get to a spot, we're going to gather up and form these semicircles as quickly as possible. What I want to show you right here is perfect deer habitat. This right here is what perfection is. You've achieved perfection when you get this. I've met so many people that buy a property and they have old field growth like this. This is what would happen if you let an old field grow up the way I was talking about earlier in the tent. Just let it go. Over a number of years, you'll get bushes, you'll get forbs growing up, and you've created the best deer habitat in the world. Now, a lot of these plants that you see in here were planted by Scott, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can just let an old field go. I hear from so many people, they come in, they buy a 20-acre property, they got a brushy area like that, and they'll come in and they'll mow 5 acres of it, and then they call my friend Jay Gilliger up, and they say, I want you to come out and do a habitat plan. And then the first thing he tells them is, you got to wait 5 years to recover your property. Deer need cover, cover, and cover in that area. And that's what you'll find as you walk through this property. What Scott Bishop has created here is a wonderland of cover. Deer do not want to walk out in open spaces. People make these 2, 3, 4, 5 acre plots because they see them on TV down in Texas. They got a ranch that only one hunter per 100 square miles is hunting, and they see these big bucks coming out. They will not come out in a 5 acre plot in daylight in most areas of Michigan. What you'll see Scott has created is cover like this, perfect deer habitat. We're going to leave here and we're going to walk into a woods here, and you're going to see a little Y-shaped food plot. Scott created that food plot over here. If you look at this food plot, we're going to come into it like this, and it's going to go out in 2 Ys like this, and it's completely surrounded by cover like this. A mature buck, 5.5 years old, will use a plot like that at midday. He feels safe going in there. You know why? He's 2 jumps from complete cover. He will never ever be seen in Michigan unless he's just got crazy hormones going on. He will never be seen in a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 20-acre field, but he'll be seen in that. My friend Jake Gillinger got shots of 150 class buck in a little plot like this 3 days in a row between 12 o'clock and 12:05 during gun season. That's what you can create. The other thing Scott's done with this food plot here, he's sucking the deer to the house. I see so many little properties like this. This is a 40-acre property, and the guys are leaving their house and they're walking back to the back fence row, disrupting every single deer in the area because hardly anybody has cover like this. If you have a homestead like this, you get cover like this, you can go in there and you can make 5 1/10 acre food plots in there. You sit up there in those windows in that house and you'll watch mature deer out here using them in daytime. This is perfection. So carve those little teeny food plots out, 2 jumps to cover, suck them into your house. Don't walk through your property. Use the food to suck the deer up to your house. And then you want to have a wind blowing right straight from the house because they smell that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And you can sit back here and shoot a deer. Mike Hartfish, his best stand on his property is 40 yards from his trailer on his property. And he has video of a booner buck several years ago walking up past that stand. He's taking a video from inside his place. So that's what he's created, something very much like Scott has. So if you don't get anything else out of this day, look at this cover right here, and when you see that on your property, you know you have perfection. Any questions about, this is old field. Any questions about that? Okay, we're going to lead the group. We'll walk through this food plot, and then we're going to stop by some ponds back in here, and Dan Timmons will talk to you about pond programs. But I heard in Greg's reading, Scott talked about the importance of water, and he's produced the water here that the deer need as well. So let's walk briskly in this direction. Hey, what's up, Brad? I don't even know where to go.
That's perfect.
Landmines.
Oops.
Hopefully there's a nice cold
There's a cool breeze coming in. I'm looking
I think we're
forward
going to get a lot of breeze in.
at least get a little shade now. There's a lot of shade. I've been on this property several times.
Have you?
Yeah.
Get down here a little bit. incredible with the field, eh?
Yeah. You got plenty of cover, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he just doesn't want the deer moving directly under.
This is the food plot right here. See it? See it?
So we're
It's
just
how
thinking
small it
about
is.
why a mature buck would want to use this in daylight is because he's one bound from cover right here. Just look at it. This is a perfect food plot.
See him? See the blue light on the growth code?
So we're going to move along and just follow
It's
Terry.
red. Is there a blue light below it?
Red light underneath.
Well, he's got,
But do you see the blue light?
about that later on, but he's got a really creative way. He went and put a 6x6
The red light keeps flashing.
Okay, watch. The blue light flashing.
But yeah.
Tell me when it stops.
Stop.
Okay.
When it goes, the light goes. Wait. Blue light gone.
Okay. I just turned off the wireless. Is the number still recording
Well,
on the little screen?
140s.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This one got like 148.
See how thick this is, Sam? You can barely see how thick it is.
136.
It's amazing.
I don't see any deer tracks.
Look at all the worms up there in the tree. The worms. The black. Well, look right here. Oh no, these are, what are these? These aren't worms. Oh, they're a type of acorn. I don't know what those are. Is that a filbert tree maybe? Oh, maybe that's the speckled alder.
Why would they do worms?
Smells nice out here, doesn't it?
Why would they do worms?
Nope, they're not. Well, I thought they were tent worms, maybe. Oh, you'll see them in this time of year. They start creating nests. Looks like spider webs in trees, and they're tent worms. They lay their eggs, and then they break out of the nest, and they go out and they eat all the leaves.
So what happened to the last visitor?
Yeah, funny.
Let me stop on before you stop. Now you
It's called Bishop Creek. This is what we got growing around our swale, Sam, all these things. See these, Sam? These trees? I'm gonna walk up over here. See.
Where do you think Dad put markers? Did he have to dig them out?
No, they're all done. He's got areas way back in here where he's got literally channels that are probably 4 or 5 foot deep that come in, and they bottleneck. So the deer that are in there have to go through the bottleneck. That's been real successful. The area I'm gonna be talking a lot about is the doe bedding area, which happens to be the best bedding area on the property. And then I'll get through that, and we're going to go back into the autumn olives and talk about that a little bit. I just don't know where my conduct is right now.
Did you say these willows were natural?
Yeah, these are all volunteer. I mean, I don't want to say that Scott didn't plant any willows. I would imagine he started planting some, but he didn't plant this many. These are just volunteer, and this is what Jim keeps talking about. This is no matter where you look on this property, this is what you see. The stem density is tremendous. I mean, the big bucks feel real comfortable. And the number of sightings that Scott has seen of racks going like this through the brush with his bow is incredible. But he just, connecting, that's the key. You gotta connect with these big guys. Is Jim Brocker back there?
So this path is a catch hard to get us bring the tourists in. Is that something that stays open all the time? For the tours? Or?
When he does his daytime, this is normally just like a deer path they walk. Okay, they do that in the winter, and it's a completely different. If you haven't been on, well, you're not going to get on a tour now, but I'd be happy to take everyone through this in the winter if they want to. It's totally different in the winter because all the leaves are off, and you get a better idea, especially with the big buck bedding area, because you can see his barriers with the Norway spruce and what he did in between to create the bachelor pad, as I'll call it. To me, it's better without the leaves. You get in there now, you're in a jungle. It's hard to imagine, but I think the picture will all come together once you see there's beds back there. You can see where they've been bedding, and this area, the deer density in this area is not good. We got less than 10 deer per square mile. It's one of the. It's actually, this is one of the worst areas in the state. We got small woodlots with large fields. So to have that kind of deer activity on this little plot is really amazing. Jim, I heard your voice.
Right here.
Our pond expert, where's he at?
Dan Timmons! Farm Legend!
Dan.
Farm Legend!
Dan, up front. Come on up. So he's lagging behind.
How do you mean that?
Okay, let's pack it in. It's
I
going
guess
to be
you
hard
can
to
take that
hear.
2 ways, right? 2 ways. I can think of. I don't need to hear.
Talking about this pond.
The ponds, yeah.
Yeah, I think these were done on Fish and Wildlife Service projects that
Correct.
engaged the Fish and Wildlife through the Partners in
You'd have
Fish
to be louder.
through the Partners in Fish and Wildlife program. And what they typically do to restore these wetlands, and a place like this is ideal for it, it's a place with a high water table, is most of this ground in this area, whether it's woods or not, once upon a time was cropland. You may see these big towering trees, but there's a real good chance it was cropland. And there are old drain tiles underground everywhere out here. And one of the things that they do when a wetland is restored like this, they go in with their equipment, a backhoe or hydro hoe or whatever, and they tear out the old drain tiles. They're usually old, they're usually clay. Some I've seen them made out of iron also. But once they take those drain tiles out, they can then use the equipment, establish a berm, which we're standing on here, and a scheme based upon the assumed direction in which the water wants to flow, and voila, a wetland is created. Now, one of the fascinating things that occurred here, and I had the same experience in the wetlands I've had performed on my property under the same program, is here you're dealing with old farm ground. This was rope These were row crops that were growing here, and they were row crops that grew for generations. And once you stop farming it, and you establish this wetland, all of a sudden these seeds that had been in the seed bank and had been dormant in some cases for over 100 years, it's like they show up out of nowhere. And all of a sudden you'll have these reeds and you'll have these sedges and all of these other wetland plants. Cattails will show up, although those are frequently brought in by critters. But there's just a variety of swamp milkweed and swamp marigold, and all these wetland plants will show up that hadn't been there in a century. And you create the conditions, you stop farming it, and it's like it's magic that these plants appear out of nowhere and they create tremendous diversity, which is appealing to all kinds of wildlife creatures that are interested in eating and hiding in those different kinds of wetland plants. It's interesting to deer and, of course, to waterfowl and raccoons and skunks and other desired species. Any questions?
So there's no creek that's feeding us right there. This is all just
No, but you know, in any kind of a groundwater, people say it's stagnant. Well, it's really not stagnant. All water has a direction that it moves in, whether it's on the surface or whether it is underground. It is moving in a direction. And when you got an area that's got a high water table, you don't have to go down very far till you get to water. Now sometimes if you've got real light soil, if you've got a lot of sand, you can't do these kinds of projects because it just won't hold the water. But it still will hold some water if you have a high water table. And my sense is, from just walking around here, we do have a high water table here. Yes, sir.
Two comments. Just, I think these are defined as a shallow water pond. A lot of people think of ponds as something to look at, but this is all about shallow and habitat. And I know that Scott talked a lot about his strategy here for moving deer around, just like using them as obstacles to help create movement, structure on this piece of property.
Right. Right.
Maybe you could talk a little about that.
Right. Well, first of all, these are shallow water ponds as opposed to a fish pond, and that's one of the ways you distinguish them. A shallow water pond is seasonally wet, and during peak drought conditions, there may not be that much water in them. And as to their shape, I know this is kind of a right angle here, this particular wetland. Some are more irregular in shape, and they do steer deer movement. My wetlands tend to be very irregular in shape, and their size and dimensions can vary from year to year. And usually, you will see around the perimeter of that wetland, you'll see where deer trails will develop around the perimeter. And depending upon how wet the year is, they may appear in a different place than they did in a wet year as opposed to a dry year. And in fact, some of my woodland swamps are full of a plant called buttonbush that if in a real dry year, the deer will bed right in that buttonbush. And buttonbush is a superb plant for wood ducks, because wood ducks, when there's water in there, they can swim around to their heart's content, and that buttonbush protects them from predators, you know, hawks and owls and whatever else can prey on wood ducks. But in this case, you got this right angle, and you're going to be steering deer movement typically around the perimeter of it. The deer will go right through the middle of it, but especially if they're disturbed. But left to their own devices, I tend to think that they're lazy, and they'll tend to skirt around the water, and they're not making as much noise if they're skirting around the water. One of the neat things about hunting around a shallow water area too.
When we get to the back of the property, Scott also he's got channels cut where he's doing exactly with what you're saying. Where he's got it all bottlenecked down, so like in the big buck bedding area, the last part, you'll see there's water there, you know, and the water gives the deer a sense of safety. He can look across the water, he knows predators are not coming at him, so he does use, you know, the channels to bottleneck the deer, and it works out really well.
With that in mind,
Cottonwoods down too.
one of the I was starting
yeah,
to say
those
one of the
are.
neat things about hunting near a shallow water wetland area, in addition to the fact that you're going to be typically observing more wildlife than you may be observing in another location, some of those times when you're in your stand and you're kind of like dozing off, and it's a still day, all of a sudden you hear that little splash, 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 and it may very well look there's some deer moving in on you that you otherwise would not have been aware of. It's kind of a cool sound. You know how it is when you hear a deer crunch,
And it's not
crunching.
just that. It's
Yeah.
like I've got these on my land, and I see ducks,
Yeah.
I see muskrats, and I get cattails that grow up around mine, and in the wintertime, the bucks will bed in those cattails. They offer so much more, just the little things that you don't even really know you appreciate until you put a pond in like this. Sometimes you put them in, you think, oh, why'd I dig a big hole full of water because I got a stream a half mile away. There's so many benefits to these ponds that you can't even count.
Excellent.
One
Yeah.
benefit, Dan mentioned this, everything that's surrounding us right now is natural regrowth. The cottonwood trees back towards the pond and all these willow trees, they were here in the soil. If you look down at the ground among people's feet here, these plants are going to be 4 feet tall this summer. There's goldenrods there, and these things are going to grow up and create wonderful cover. And this is all natural. He didn't have to plant anything in here. All he had to do is dam it up and let the water build up. And that produces cottonwoods. Anywhere there's standing water, you're going to get cottonwoods and willows.
Another thing about cattails, which are excellent winter cover also, for deer also. If you have a shallow water wetland area and you do not have cattails in it, that is one of the easiest plants to establish on your own. Just go and gather some cattail seed heads from another site that are kind of dried out, and just go out when it's frozen in the winter and walk around the perimeter and just kind of shake that box and shake all of those cattail seeds out. I've done it twice and I'm batting 1,000. The perimeter of the wetlands that I've done that in, the very next year I had young cattails around the perimeter, and in the following years they took over like they were autumn olive.
Dan, how deep were your ponds?
Well, that's a good question. How deep were they? At the maximum depth, well, the minimum depth is 1 millimeter or something like that when you get close to the perimeter, but maximum depth probably at high water, probably 5 feet, something like that.
You have a pond that's, a couple feet deep, and you can put cattails in it, and then later on, if you get a drought in the summertime and it goes down, the cattails will go all the way to the middle. So if you want to have a pond that doesn't have cattails in the middle, make sure you got a deeper water area,
Yeah.
otherwise the cattails will take over.
They will soak it
And
up.
one of the mysteries of life is most of these ponds are built on these farms are funded by U.S. Wildlife Fish and Game, but they'll tell you we don't make fish ponds. We make habitat ponds. We're restoring wetlands. So they will not dig a hole deep enough for a fish to live in, even though they're fishing game. Yeah. So if you do get them, you'll get a permit to build something like this, but not to build a fish pond. Yeah.
Well, a place to start is your local NRCS office. Typically every county has a coordinator or a biologist or a CRP person, and they will steer you in the right direction. There's a couple different programs. One's called a Wetland Reserve Program, that's probably more lucrative for a landowner in terms of generating income for you. The Partners in Fish and Wildlife program does not generate income, but that's done absolutely you pay nothing for it, and that's typically a 10-year contract that you have to keep it in that practice. And that is a partnership between the Department of Interior and the Ag Department in a sense. So
This is a powerful way to get wetlands on your property. They'll do it for you.
See, I got 80 acres that's in the federal wetlands, and they don't allow you to plant a tree or cut a tree or do anything after it's in there.
Yeah, you really have to look carefully at these programs because you don't want to get
Yeah,
trapped
it's not
into
going to go
something
much
that's-
longer.
Nothing. So
yeah, I think that's Wetland Reserve Program. I think that's the case. Because on my program, it's
Yeah.
not as lucrative, but my hands are only tied for 10 years, and I can plant things around it too with permission.
Any other wetlands questions before we move on? Yes, sir.
Are you guys treating these more as sanctuaries, these types of wetlands, or is this something where you're looking to ambush?
I don't believe this is used as a sanctuary. This is really about steering deer and providing water and providing this cover, this natural cover that came up. You can produce bedding in wetlands. but I don't think that was Scott's goal with this.
No, it wasn't mine either. You know, I didn't do it with a specific strategy. I want a wetland here so I can steer deer in this direction. Now, you know, I did it for the other, you know, wildlife habitat benefits. Now, as far as steering deer goes, it does do that. Insofar as they will tend to skirt around that wetland, wherever that wetland happens to be that year.
If you wanted bedding here, I mean, nothing makes better bedding. Bucks like to lay up on a bank like that. You take and hinge cut these cottonwood trees here, and you could get bucks to stay here if you want, but he doesn't necessarily want them here, so he's not optimizing for that. We're going to see a spot at the end of the tour, the bedding area, where there's a spot where his big buck was laying. They know the exact spot where it was laying, and it's exactly this kind of thing where he's sitting there facing water, and he can hop through that water, and he feels safe that he crossed a body of water to escape from his predator. Unfortunately, he turned the wrong way and went past a much more lethal predator than anything he did. Other questions before we move along? Please, let's move briskly as we go. I know there's fascinating people to hang back and talk with, but...
But Sam wants to get going. We gotta move it.
That's all he's ever going to be.
He's all looking for time. Well, my problem is QDMA. So it feels like a lot bigger because it's so thick.
There is a website available.
feel like it has the need to start more people that
I'm not sure what he's talking about. What is it?
well, like they were full of people
Oh, I see. The best way to follow is in
We're going to go this way.
research what the local sites are. So if you just type Michigan QDMA into a Google search, there's
Another
in the first
water area there.
you'll get you might want to add the word branch, Michigan QDMA branch.
Arrow.
There's a map that shows all the different branches in the state and their websites and Facebook pages. You just needed to do a little research on Google. Yeah, well, you would need to find out who the leadership is.
I think that was the salute, Hero.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Is the
All
salute.
that is an email list.
How do you gather all the arrows? One over here. Can you guys gather the arrows? Everyone wanted their arrows back. I can't believe we found them.
That's pretty amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Were all these trails here?
No, back here, a lot of these were cut today, or yesterday.
There's one back there on the right side of that trail.
There's one back here on the other side of the trail. We didn't get it, but we'll get it. Another thing I want to point out, you see the house, you see the upper window? The guy was sitting there with his spotting scope. And Jim mentioned how important it was to have covered up by the house. During hunting season, all the bucks were up at the top of the house. He would sit there and he would just watch them out in his small field spot.
No, just looking around.
The doorway and the white spruce that you see growing here, it's a barrier. You know, winds come pretty much out of the southwest, so you can walk down this lane and not be seen by a bedded buck. That is key too. That is really key. Without them, when these things are small, you're busting bucks out of here left and right. How old are they? They were planted in. I'm not sure about these. These ones are planted a little bit later. I would say these ones were probably planted in maybe 7, 88. Maybe even later. Maybe more later. See the field behind us? That is exactly what he bought. He bought 40 acres of dirt. Is what he bought.
Yeah.
I don't have a quad that's big enough. Yeah, you need
But they provide acorns. But you know, someone's got to realize that if you're going to go out and plant 40 acres of oak, you're creating a deer desert.
I've got a small bit that's about like that. Something like that. Yeah. I mean, most of the stuff though that I need to do.
Okay, I want to.
Look at that. It's pretty cool. You don't have a tree. Do it for a tree stand, you just put one in.
I don't really know.
Yeah, I always thought it was a lower grow, like 20 foot easy, but people are talking about putting stands on it. So I was kind of wondering.
This isn't a stopping spot, but I think it's interesting to point out the tree stand and how he makes tree stands on. You know, he doesn't have mature enough trees to put tree stands in, and how he uses back cover with speckled alder. That's what's so great about the speckled alder. They grow so fast. That tree's probably 10 years old or less. They just grow like wildfire.
How tall are them posts?
I don't know, but what I'm trying to show here is the tree stand setup that Scott used, and he's used this for years. He doesn't have mature trees. He had one mature tree on this property. We'll go by it and I'll show it to you. He's got about 5 stands in that one. But this is how he developed all his tree stands. He used a 6x6 post. That thing's probably 20 foot tall. He's got it cemented in, and then he's got it anchored in with tethers on the side. And what was so key is to use the speckled alder as a backdrop so the deer don't pick you out. And this is the same type of stand that he shot his big buck out of. He's got these all over the property, and there's other type of tree stands. They look like a step ladder. They're made out of 4x4s. I want to talk about those briefly too when we get up into this.
And when do these alders drop their leaves?
Very late. Those alders will hold their leaves into gun season, which is another huge advantage. I mean, you can sit up there with a gun and you still have all those leaves. That's a huge advantage with these alders. There's nothing bad about the alders. Those leaves.
Should be this small food plot. Other tree stand right there. Double. Him and the kids. Like how he's got the trees in between the food plots to break them up. Small food plots.
He invited me, but I had a conflict. I think it was my barber nephew.
Another water hole there.
Really?
To be honest with you, I don't know if that was ever been planted. Scott had those created and he never planted them. But that would be brassica or white clover or something of that nature. Some of the plots back here are further developed. We got a grass expert that's going to talk about the grasses, and maybe we need to walk over to the grasses. Sorry, cameraman. I'm working you out pretty good. Yeah.
Dan Timmons.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know if everyone heard, but the autumn olive.
I do not know.
They died from the cold winters. I didn't know an autumn olive could die. they're so durable, but they obviously the past 2 winters were pretty tough on them.
Seems that negative 25 below is the temperature that will kill them back. We had that. I'm northern Michigan. My mom and dad had planted a lot of autumn olives, and they're fine. 20 below, they don't seem to bother. Once they hit that negative 25 below, they start seeing that dying back.
He's got huge bedding areas in the back, and it's kind of a shame because almost 100% die off. You know.
They'll come back from the roots.
Oh, they will?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Dan, this is where you take over. This is native grass.
These are warm season grasses here, and you can see some more of these glorious speckled alders invading. And I like speckled alders. One of the things that is, it's hard to imagine if you don't have experience with these warm season grasses how different this site looks like now as what it will look like, 3 months from now, because I imagine, not having ever been here before, but I can well imagine these grasses are wall to wall and about this high. Yeah, this is just an absolutely beautiful plot. You know, it's nothing like what you see. And another neat thing is how it changes over the course of the year. It's almost like a time-lapse photo as these things go through the growing season. The color of it changes a little bit every day. And it'll turn yellowish and reddish, and some of the blue stems even turn kind of purplish color. But here I imagine we've got some Indian grass and probably 50 stems growing in here. These actually look like little things. That's taller than little things. I know, it seems like it should be. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, Indian grass is good. The warm season grasses really have not begun to grow yet. They don't really take off and start making some growth in this latitude till probably in June. Now there's probably some that are springing up and sticking their heads up above the soil right now, but predominantly the green stuff you've seen here is you see some young goldenrods, some cool season grasses. I've got a red maple here. I've got, of course, the speckled alder. And you ever do any burns in here? Yeah, you've done quite a few burns. Yeah, burning is a great way to rejuvenate these warm season grass stands. They generally recommend you burn about every 5 years or so. And I got some grasses on my place that are really overdue. I meant to burn them this year but never got around to it. And burning it will not only, after a period of time, you'll get a mat of vegetative, dead grasses that's there that kind of retards the grass growth a little bit. And that year you burn it, they just take off like crazy. And the other thing the burning will do for you, it will control the invasion of woody vegetation like this red maple and the speckled alder and this aspen right here. Burning it will kill them, yes.
How do you control, with this being so closed in, how do you control it, the burn? I mean, what method do you use?
You gotta use somebody that's skilled in doing a burn. I'm not one of them. The best way to do it is to establish some kind of a burn break around the perimeter of the grass stand by mowing. If you mow it somewhat periodically, you'll get green stuff, cool season grasses or whatever. Some guys that are really gung-ho will actually plant clover or bird's foot trefoil or something like that stays green around it. And that's kind of a safety barrier when you do conduct your burn, providing you do your burn after those things do green up in the spring. Doing a burn is something for guys that got a little bit of experience I've done some of it, but I've also done enough of it to have a great deal of respect for the process. I've been in had some of those nervous moments where all of a sudden the wind changed 180 degrees and the fire was going the wrong way. So you want to use someone that's got some experience at it. Typically in most areas, there's a legal requirement that you get a permit in advance of conducting the burn. I leave that to the discretion of the landowner. The last time I did it that way, it would have been cheaper for me to do it on my own and pay the fine when they caught me. It was that big of a pain in the ass for me to get the permit issued, and then there was a whole list of, you must do it between these hours, and you do this, do that, otherwise we're going to come and incarcerate you. But I've done it on the QT since then. But use someone that's somewhat experienced. The last time I did a major burn, I hired some guys that did it that had they had all of the bright yellow suits that they wore, and they had the spray tank with some kind of flame retardant chemical that was in their tank mix, and that was much more enjoyable to participate as a spectator, because there's a little bit of pyromaniac in all of this. And when it gets to that point where your back burn is completed and you just let it go, well, you could sell tickets to something like that. That's better than the fireworks show at the 4th of July. 35-foot tall flames, and seconds later there's a puff of smoke and nothing but black smoldering ground where there once was a bunch of combustible material. And
I burned a 14-acre field of switchgrass that was this fall. And I went to the local fire department and they said, what was my burn plan? I said, light a match and run. And they didn't like that, obviously. But what they ended up doing, they got like 4 fire departments all came together. I had 70 guys with backpack sprayers. And it was kind of a joke in a way, because I did it right after the snow melted. The fire didn't go anywhere, but the local fire departments were working with that. So
it was a hell of a
depends
picture,
upon your
though, Terry.
Yeah,
Mine was not real supportive.
no, mine was real supportive.
Those volunteer fire departments for a small donation will help you do it.
I offered that.
Yeah, we did that out at Jamie Blanchard's property. Yeah. Small donation, they spent most of the day out there. We were burning 10 acres.
That's typically controlled at the township level. It depends on the township.
Yeah.
Got a question here?
How far is the swale hole from the back end of this grass?
The what?
How far is that swale hole from the back end of this grass?
Not too far, maybe 50 yards. Just like on this plot here, if I was going to do it myself, I will do something this size myself. I'll just run my tractor with a 5-foot disc around the outside edge of it, and then I'll come in. I'll make sure I got 0 to 3 mile an hour wind. If I got much more wind than that, you're looking for trouble. But the thing you want to keep in mind on your property, if you've got a lot of native grasses, do it in fourths. This year I'm doing a fourth of it. Next year I'm going to do a fourth of it. The year after that I'm going to do a fourth of it, etc. So that I don't eliminate all the habitat for the birds and stuff that are nesting out in this thing right now. Switchgrass has 1.5 times the fuel in it per acre as an acre of corn.
Wow.
As an acre of corn. So Dan was talking about a 30-foot wall of flame. You'll see that blowing down through here in about 10 seconds. It can be overwhelming, but don't get rid of all your habitat in 1 year. They've got a patch of switchgrass right down here. I might burn this one and then go on down a little ways farther. They're compartmentalizing everything on this property. But I might leave that one stand for a year or two so that I've got some cover still there.
Other questions?
I think burning will kill all these alders off. I would see this field just get filled.
Guys aren't going to want to do a fall burn. They want that covered with a wall. They're really intent on killing the woody vegetation that is there. To get a superior kill if you do a fall burn. And it's also easier to find people to do a fall burn for you, because in the spring everybody wants to do the burn.
said something Dan just said there. It's the season of the burn. You burn in the spring, you're going to create grass. If you burn in the fall, you're creating forbs. Forbs are 70% of deer's diet in the summertime. I don't care if you got food plots or not. 70% of their diet depends on the native vegetation you got. So if you want to change the composition right here in this field, try burning it in the fall. You're going to have more forb content on here than you do that grass content. Same thing with sprays though. Sprays like Roundup's more effective in the fall. It's like 4 times more effective than it is in the spring. So if you want an area to kill, like I want to kill this field off here, I might mow it and various things during the year, and then come like September when it's still green, I'm going to go out there and spray that thing. I'm going to have a lot better luck with my herbicide than I did in the spring spraying. Keep that in mind.
Okay, we're going to follow Terry next and go to a doe bedding area.
One thing that we know will work is cattail.
Pond over there. Cool.
The deer will eat an alder. It's kind of considered an emergency food, like in the winter, it's a starvation food, basically. But they will nibble on them, just like these Norway spruce we're going to be going through. The deer will eat them when they're little. Once you get them established, at least the deer around here don't touch them. That's what's good about it. Okay, I'm going to get this started. What we're going to be entering now, we got a trail cut through some Norway spruce. This happens to be the best bedding area on the ground. It holds primarily does. This is a doe bedding area. Does hang in groups. You know, does like to sit within like all 20 yards of one another. They like to look over each other's shoulders. They're looking for danger. They like to communicate. Unlike bucks, the buck bedding area is at the end of the tour, and it's totally different. We mentioned earlier about channeling deer with water. There is a channel that's cut. This whole section, it's a 3-acre plot that heads north-south, and just on the other side of it, there's one of those channels. So he's forcing the deer to go north-south, and on the back corner, there's a huge food plot, and on the other side of that, he's got a gun blind. As we go through, look for yellow flags hanging from the trees. There's always something to look at with a yellow flag. the first thing you'll notice when we walk in here, there's a flag, and if you look to the right, you've got a tree stand. It's one of those tripod tree stands I was talking about. Trying to hunt out of the Norway spruce when they're 10, 12 foot tall, almost impossible. I know he's done a lot of ground hunting with his recurve, and when they started getting taller, he started making these tripods and he'd get himself elevated, but he still had a lot of problems with wind and things like that.
There's a tripod.
Yeah, that's a tripod, but this one's made out of womanized lumber. You can see what he was doing. The reason he chose, these are the first trees planted on the land too. The reason he chose Norway spruce is, one, like I said, the deer don't eat them. Two, the browse hang low. They're not like a pine where you get all the dead browse. But these are planted 8 foot apart, so you do get a lot of browse that actually did die because I think they're planted too close. But to me, that's a good thing because the does get in there and they can kind of see everyone. Just a tremendous bedding area for deer in general. So as we go through, we're going to hit like I said, the first thing you're going to come across is the yellow flag. Look to the right, you can see the stand that he was trying to use in this area. And he saw a lot of big bucks through here. You know, in the rut, the bucks will find the does, so the bucks will be running this. And then we're going to walk all the way through till we hit a T. And when we hit the T, there's a yellow flag hanging. To the right, you can walk out and look at the food plot. It's a big food plot. To the left is another one of those small, what we call kill plots, like we looked up way up front by the house. It's shaped at a 90-degree angle, and if you look this way to the west, there's a very large oak tree. His game plan was to put a tree stand in that large oak tree. It's on the fence row here. So let's go. And did I miss anything?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Now, how do you access this blind that you were going to see, the first one? Where do you access it from?
You know, that all depended on the wind, obviously. You know, this particular blind was set up for like a southwest wind, so he would probably come in from this way.
Gotcha.
You know, the deer are bedded in here. Yep. Oh, there's another thing. He's got a fence that runs east-west, and he's got a very small opening. And he would take a stand like this and put it next to that opening. Any buck that's running down through the pines gets funneled right into the fence, and that's where his stand was. You'll see that as well.
Thermal cover?
What's that?
Thermal cover?
Oh yeah, Jim brought up, in the wintertime, the thermal benefit of the Norways is huge. The does will go in there, and when you get in there, it's amazing because it's just covered with moss, and it's just browse hanging everywhere. The deer just belly up to these Norways during the winter. Anything else on this?
Just one thing that strikes me on this, and you can talk to Dan Timmons or Mike Hartridge about it. He's cutting trees in here that he grew from seedlings, and that's something you face when you're really a mature habitat guy. Like I've been on Mike's property cutting trees down that he planted 20 years ago. It's a real thrill to see that kind of thing, that you're going from growing the trees and now you have to come in and cut them because they make so much canopy. We're going to see a spot with oak trees.
It took me 2 hours to cut the path for walking through, and I'm thinking, 20 years ago I was planting little seedlings this big, just wishing these trees were huge. Now they're so big, you know, I'm out here sweating. It's really amazing because this is a forest. I mean, it really, if you get in there, it gets dark, and it's just perfect deer bedding. And like I said, primarily does, but during the rut, the bucks will go through here. Okay, let's go.
Ooh, cool down.
Yeah.
It's nice and cool.
Yeah, I messed that up. You're all looking for it. I'm not going to see it. Can we pass the word down, guys? The stand is, these guys are taking a picture of it. I came in the wrong entrance. And if you could just pass the word down, anyone that wants to take a look at it, we're going to have to kind of, when you're done looking at it, make sure you come back so we don't clog up here. I'll just keep guiding.
No, we'll just keep going.
Is this the bedding area?
Oh, it was unhuntable. Yeah. He would, he'd sit in grass fields and get afraid of the deer. Anyone that's interested in that tripod stand is over there. I came in the wrong end.
Where's that at? What county's that?
We're Marion Township, Saginaw County.
There's a lot of places
I actually, on my way up, I seen a lot of browse laying up here. 15 or so miles.
Very thick, wouldn't you say? Can't see very far.
But yeah, you'll have to
That's moss.
But the blue spruces, I do the best. They nip on that a little winter.
I've had real good luck with these. White pine, they just
Oh, yeah, there's them all.
Yep.
White pine on my property. Yeah.
Some type of moss. I'm not sure exactly what. Oh, this one. That's kind of funny.
Which I have some of that too, but that's, I use that, but I went to,
Yep. Deer trail. Yeah.
At least up to there. Get that fall, one winter they have a hard winter and they
I don't know that. He's got a lot of rich cover on the floor.
we had people move the car away from
They can't find it out in the woods or keep it up because the snow's too deep. Yellow flag.
Is this the funnel thing?
This is the fence where you try to get the deer to funnel through this hole. And then somewheres around here he's got a bow shot.
I think forestry management for me is forestry management coming in there and doing some elected cuts, open the sky, get the sky in there. We just did.
Another thing.
I got 23
Yep.
acres at my house, and then I have
The
farm up in Dakota County.
I'm not sure.
We
Not
just-
sure which way to go.
We just did a 12-acre clear cut up in a woodlot. Other than we left one area, we left about 5-6 acres that we left. About 20 oaks, about that big, 8 to 10 inches per acre. We took everything like that gone. You know, and in 1 year, that was just a year ago February, just last summer, we've already got growth of new stuff in there like that.
What do you think these got outposts are?
Open field with deer blind over there.
What do you say these were for?
I think somewheres he had a shot from a bow. He put up a bow stand someplace. So this is the type of habitat that big bucks like, and deer in general. Warm, isn't it?
Okay, what we're looking at here, it looks like a lane cut through here. This is actually going to be a kill plot. It's similar to what we saw up by the house. It goes this way, and then if you walk this way, it turns 90 degrees. You can see the large oak in the fence row over here. That's where his tree stand's going to be. He started cutting away limbs, but never got to the point of even putting a stand up. These work really well because, again, like what Jim was saying, 2 jumps, look what the deer's in. You take the deer, a mature buck will come out into here and boom, boom, he's out. I know he had some kind of blind set up over here, and his daughter looked out one day gun season, and she says, "Dad, there's a big buck," and it was the one that he ended up shooting. And when Scott looked up, he thought something. They made a noise, and boom, the deer's gone. And that's what the buck likes, though. You know, in case of danger, you're into cover.
What did he have in here before?
Well, there's nothing planted now, but this was going to be a clover plot.
So there's some clover.
Yeah, I guess he may have had clover plot here before. I really don't know. And then we're going to walk out straight this way.
The point is that it's a small food plot. The shooting lane, the shooting plane is the food plot. Deer could get off it really quick. So it'd come meet whenever it was hungry, any time of day, not just that night or right before dark.
That's cooler.
When the deer was really hungry, he'd come up and eat these yellow pasty strips. Wow, that looks nice and soft. It'll lay down there. Cool in there.
Frog right there.
Oh, go ahead, bud. Careful, careful, careful. Holy cow.
Pick up our feet.
Yeah, nice, narrow, long.
You can't really see it. You see the wood line there. That's where this channel cut that I mentioned. So deer that are in the Norways, they really don't have a choice. They're out in the open field. If they go this way, they've got a channel of water they have to cross. So it forces them this way. Either that or they go towards the house. So that, it draws them right out to the food plot where you want them.
There's Ed. He's out here waiting for us.
These deer are all deer
Oh, we're going that way? Thanks, buddy.
well. They don't feel pressured. They don't feel like they're out in the food plot yet. They're still in cover or seclusion. They feel safe here. And that's how he's able to take these bucks early season. Now that would be his gun blind, but the same scenario there. He's got a beautiful white clover food plot that offers seclusion. He's had bucks midday during gun season feeding in this because they just feel safe here. So anyways, when you walk through, if you see some yellow ribbons, those are deer beds. You always notice they're underneath overhanging branches, stereotypical what you'd expect out of a deer bed. Mostly buck groups, social groups will bed here every year. Ironically, we don't get big activity here